a good test of my level of, well, we'll get to it. Okay. Mike, if you would do us the honor of doing the mandala, so please make the mudra for the mandala offering.
Sashi Puki Jukshing Metzok Tron Rira Bling Shin Yende Genpadi Sange Shingdu Mikte Wargi Jokun Namdak Shingla Drupar Shok Idam Guru Ratnamanda Kam Niryatayam.
I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, compassion, knowledge, and strength, the Dharma, the enlightened side of truth, and the Sangha, the community of realized beings. From the virtuous merit I create, from the practice of giving with the understanding of emptiness, moral discipline with the understanding of emptiness, patience with the understanding of emptiness, joyous effort with the understanding of emptiness, concentration, wisdom, may I attain the state of a Buddha for the benefit of all living beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, compassion, knowledge, and strength, the Dharma, the enlightened side of truth, and the Sangha, the community of realized beings. From the virtuous merit I create, from the practice of giving with the understanding of emptiness, moral discipline with the understanding of emptiness, patience with the understanding of emptiness, joyous effort with the understanding of emptiness, concentration, wisdom, may I attain the state of a Buddha for the benefit of all living beings. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, compassion, knowledge, and strength, the Dharma, the enlightened side of truth, and the Sangha, the community of realized beings. From the virtuous merit I create, from the practice of giving with the understanding of emptiness, moral discipline with the understanding of emptiness, patience with the understanding of emptiness, joyous effort with the understanding of emptiness, concentration and wisdom, I will attain the state of a Buddha for the benefit of all living beings. Okay, rejoicing. Let's see who's going to start with rejoicing. Let's go with Wendy.
Hi, everyone. I'm rejoicing because I had a fantastic weekend with lots of sunshine, which we haven't had for weeks. So it was wonderful to be outside, and I got to go and see some people that I haven't seen for a while, and see them doing their happy things as well. So it was just a wonderful weekend, which really bounced me up.
Oh, good. Mike?
Hey, so I had something interesting happen this weekend. I was working a gig on Saturday night playing piano, and singing at a bar, and there was a lot of drunk people there, and someone came up to the piano to write down a song request, and she put her drink on the piano, and then she knocked her drink over into the piano.
Oh,
So like yeah, so like half of a White Claw dumped inside of my electric keyboard.
oh,
Um and and there's like 50, 60 people there, and it's like, you know, 20 minutes into the show or something, and I'm like, "Oh, great. Like, this might have been my last song of the night." Like, and I just started. And so I'm like, and my instinct is to like, react,
yeah.
and I like did the best I could, and like I got the drink off, and I like flipped the piano up, and I like dumped a bunch of liquid out of it, and I was like worried you know about my reaction, because like I know that like if I have this, it was like this automatic thing that happened. It was so weird. I'm like, don't react to this, don't like, be careful here,
Oh, good.
and at the end of the night, I was like wrapping my stuff up, and one of the bartenders goes, you were so patient when that girl dumped her drink on your piano. And I said, what did you just say? Patience? You said patient. So, it was I was like wondering if I handled it properly, and it was just kind of like an outside acknowledgement of like,
Sure.
someone else noticed that I was being patient and not just myself.
Well, I'm
So
surprised your piano didn't short out.
me too.
They
There,
must
I
make
found out
them.
there's not a lot of like wiring up in the portion of the board that she spilled it on.
Well, you have the spill drink protection version of that keyboard. You didn't know you could buy it, but you did. So,
That's
well,
right.
I'm proud of you having a patient response and beautifully having someone recognize it is wow. That's about like doesn't get much more cool than that. So good. So did you ask her on a date?
No.
Okay.
She's
Oh,
married with a kid.
what do you have to rejoice in?
Uh, Hello, everybody. So today I was translating very deep meditation teaching by Geshe Michael. It was Ganden Hlagyama, maybe you know, yes, of course. And I thought that it would be very easy. I thought that just 1 hour and that's it. But it took me 3 hours and it was so difficult. I don't know why. And always in outside world, there were a lot of distractions, obstacles, kids, animals, like everyone tried to distract me from this translation. But finally, I said, no, I would do this. I would do this. And so I did it. And I was very happy for myself. Like finally, I did it. So, and devote this to the whole world.
Very good. You won't forget that translation for a while, I bet.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It's in my mind.
Very good. Well, you get it. You're making progress. That's great to hear. Okay, let's see. Katya, you're up next.
Hi, hello. I rejoice that I'm working in helping in the event of Geshe Michael that is gonna be on July in Mexico City. I'm helping with the registrations and the payment, and my rejoice is that Mike is coming, so I'm very happy about that.
Very good. And that's a very powerful entity. By helping that teaching, you're setting seeds to get teachings in the future, and you're helping many people get to the teaching. So that's very powerful. Very powerful. Good. Okay, who's next? Svetlana.
Hello, Venerable Sumati. Hello, everyone. I would like to rejoice about my colleagues. Today we like celebrated birthday of our boss in another country, and it was so touching. She even cried. Like one colleague told that she is presenting our boss as an example to his daughter. Another colleague wished her happiness in her family life and etc. And it was so touching, and she even cried, and she told that she transformed herself from being like doing all by herself by doing everything for her team and lead your team first. And it was so wonderful. And for me, I was like so scaring like big bosses and all this corporate stuff. But this girl, she's like around my age, and she's so kind, open-hearted, and she just wants transform lives of other people, at least as I'm seeing her. And it was nice to have such good corporate community, and I dedicated that everyone live in peaceful and supporting environment.
Very good. Yeah, it's always fun and gratifying to see your karma ripening. That's what happened is your karma ripening from in the past, having been just that kind of person and example to others. So very good. And you're perpetuating it. So that's half the battle right there. Okay, let's see who's up next. I have two images of Daria, so I'll go with the image with the headphones.
Good morning, Venerable Sumati. When I see you, I have a lot of rejoice. First, I rejoice because yesterday I was in your meeting with your wife, and I saw you very happy, and it's amazing for me. Yeah, yes, and some people can't came to your meeting, and I sit in my room and say, oh, it's okay. I can, if you open a Telegram video, I can share screen. I could, yeah. And these people, when we opened the Telegram, these people came to this Telegram and saw your meeting. It's about 23 people could.
Wow.
And they was very happy, and it's amazing.
Wow. I am totally ignorant of Telegram, and I intend to remain ignorant of Telegram. But I'm glad that worked. That it is amazing technology. I can remember when Skype first came up, and it was fantastic. And now we've got Zoom, which I think is, for me, is better than Skype. But amazing. These are cities. I'll describe that in a later class. But they're miraculous. The ability to contact around the world with Zoom or with Skype or with Telegram or Telegraph or whatever is really, really amazing karma ripening. And the only way to keep that happening is to help with others' communication, and at any time you can help people understand. And that's something I have to deal with, a very touchy subject in the next week or so. So I'm not looking forward to that in one sense. I'm looking forward in another, but that's a long story. Go ahead.
Dear Venerable Sumati, I'm so sorry. Could I ask you?
Sure, why not?
Will you give us a Manjushri?
Manjushri.
Practice.
Oh, let me think about it.
Okay.
Thank you for that. You have to ask 3 times, not all right at the same time.
Thank you.
Okay, Evgeny, what do you have to rejoice about? Well,
Oh, he's just recording, I guess.
okay. Okay. So, Camilla, what do you have to rejoice?
I'm rejoicing, all still related to my job, because now I have to wait for 2 weeks to get a hopefully positive answer. So at the moment, I've been thinking about all the people I supported to get a job and help them to find a job, and rejoice that. And I've also been doing some research and was really happy that some people are still in the same position. And yeah, so I've written the email, and I'm still waiting now for me to get into the positive mode to then send it and donate this email, not just for me to get the job, but for the job, because it's a program supporting not just Vienna but Austrian-wide apprentices.
No.
So yeah, that's what I'm rejoicing at the moment.
Good. Well, I hope you get the job. You'll be able to help many people learn a skill and move on in their careers. That's a very powerful position to have karmically. So very good.
Yes, thank you.
So for me, lots is going on. Well, so the White Tara teaching coming up has blossomed into quite an event, and we're going to have to clarify for many of the students that want to attend. There are some qualifications, some previous training you need to have before you can take the White Tara teaching. So I have to figure out a delicate way to say that, because originally it was being given to students in Germany and who are well qualified for it. And then it exploded into across Russia and Ukraine. So I had people ask how to set up an altar. If you don't know how to set up an altar, you probably shouldn't be taking the blessing. So I have to figure out a delicate way to deal with that. I rejoice in having the challenge, because it meant in the past I was not clear, and in the present I wasn't clear because I assumed people understood this. So that's kind of a weird rejoicable. But then the other thing, I decided to maybe change my teaching from the three principal paths back to the source of all my good. And the source of all my good files on my computer are corrupted. So I have to deal with trying to fix those. And I didn't get mad. I did spend 2 fruitless hours trying to figure out what's wrong with the program, but I didn't get mad. So my rejoicing is, instead of getting mad and blaming the computer or the software company, I just tried to fix it with reasonable joy in my heart, although 2 in the morning is a little late to be fixing software problems. But so I rejoice that I didn't get angry. So Sharon, what do you have to we start class by having people rejoice. Do you have something you can rejoice in? No? There you are.
Добрый день.
Hello, everyone. I'm sharing my happiness that finally I'm with you. I'm happy about it, and I'm very thankful for this.
Oh, I'm sorry you had trouble getting reaching us, but thank you for being here. And I'm glad I've made you happy. That's my goal in life, is to make people happy and to have people laugh at my jokes. And then practice what I teach. Maybe not in that order. Okay, so we're going to start class. This is class 3 on course 5, the kinds of karma and good karma, how karma works. In this class, I'm going to be asking, at least at the beginning, for some help with a definition. I've done this with many classes and I still don't have a good definition. So the Tibetan word for virtue is gewa. And the sutra describes 3 kinds of karma: virtuous karma, non-virtuous karma, and neutral karma. Virtuous karma is that karma which in the short term brings you a karmic ripening which is pleasant. and ultimately protects you from suffering. Non-virtue is that karma which brings you a karmic ripening which is undesirable, a feeling of pain. And a neutral deed is something neither virtuous or non-virtuous. It's a karma which is neither desirable or undesirable. So here's my question. What's the difference between merit and virtue? It's not a trivial question. It's not, I mean, the world doesn't revolve around it. I tend to use the two terms interchangeably. And one of our dedication, we all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So, does virtue generate merit? Does merit generate virtue? What's the relationship? I'm just curious if anybody has a thought on that. Go ahead, Svetlana.
Just as a suggestion, maybe when we are making good deeds, like it's like good virtuous deeds, and when we are collecting those virtuous good deeds, it creates our merit. So like compounding virtuous good deeds supports, creates those merits which we can.
Okay, that's interesting. So merit refers to the collection of virtue. Yeah, I like that. Anybody else? Mike?
Kind of similar to that, like virtue is virtue is like defining the type of deed being created. So like, it's either I'm doing a bad deed, I'm doing a neutral deed, I'm doing a virtuous deed. And then if I'm doing virtuous deeds, then those are collecting merit. Like merit is like the tally mark of like, all right, I did one of these virtuous deeds, and that's plus one merit or something. That's how I think about it.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Wendy, do you have a thought?
Yeah, that's how I had understood it as well, is just what Mike explained there, and then the merit is what allows you to progress along the path. Is like as you accumulate merit, your merit will allow you to go further. That's what I'd understood anyway.
Well, it's not that there's a right or wrong. I'm interested because we talk about you get an award in the military or in the police or something for meritorious service. You don't get an award for virtuous service. So meritorious. So Mike, if I'm listening to you correctly, virtue is the deed, merit is the result of the deed. And your collecting virtuous deeds allows you to collect merit. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that.
But it's like, I think merit can also be used. Like there's like some confusion there though, because you said like in the army, it's like they have meritorious deeds. Like merit can also be used in the same way that virtue is being used here. It's just like we're like choosing to separate them.
Yeah. Well, here's an interesting, let me see if I can find it.
Sorry, so can you say there is no merit without virtue, but virtue goes without merit?
Oh, that's an interesting thought. Say that again.
There is no merit without virtue, but virtue can go without merit.
How does virtue go without merit? I don't disagree with what you're saying, Camille. I just am trying to.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, yes. I'm just trying to verbalize it. He, Well, I can't explain it.
Well, let's cook it. Here's on the internet, what is merit in Buddhism? In Buddhism, merit is an intangible product of good actions. So that's kind of what Mike and Wendy are saying. It's an intangible, although we're making it tangible. It's the product of good actions. So virtue is a good action. Merit is the product of that. I saw something here. Where was it? In obsolete terms, the difference between merit and virtue is that merit is a quality or state of deserving, either good or bad, while virtue is the inherent power of a god. Well, that doesn't help me any. Well, I'll cook what you said, and that's a homework assignment. See if you can come up with a definition of merit and wisdom that we can discuss. Because
Okay.
the question is, I like what Mike and Wendy have said, but like Camilla, I think there's a saying in biochemistry, which this is going to sound really weird, but I'm going to say it anyway. In biochemistry, there's a saying that all enzymes are protein, but not all proteins are enzymes. Now that for some reason strikes me as what I think what Camilla's trying to say is is it true to say
Yeah.
all virtue is merit, but not all merit is virtue? I don't think that's right.
That's
So,
exactly. But it goes the other way around.
yeah.
All merit is virtue, but not all virtue is merit.
It's
Why
an
go ahead, Wendy.
I was going to say it's an interesting one to think through, and I guess because I've been quite good getting back on my 6 times book and doing the virtues, the 10 virtues and non-virtues, and it's interesting to think if there would be any of those, because that's really what this refers to, and then I guess it probably refers to other ones, the Bodhisattva ones as well, when you get to that point. But is there any of those, if you did any of those acts, so if you were generous, if you told the truth, if you et cetera, would it not allow you to accumulate merit? And I'm not sure that's the case. I think if you are acting, because that's the whole point, is that you should try and act as virtuous as possible so that you are then accumulating merit. And I think each of them, there is a text somewhere that says that leads to it. So I don't know if you can have virtue that will not result in merit. I think that's the objective, is be as virtuous as you can so you get the merit, but there may not be a direct correlation. It may not be, I give $1 to somebody, therefore I've got one piece of merit. It may be that the correlation is different, but all virtuous acts lead to merit.
Well, I think Mike had an interesting point he just made. What was it? Virtue done without wisdom is not merit. So if you open the door for someone to say, well, that's a nice thing to do, that's virtue. That is a nice thing to do. But opening the door and saying, I do this so that in the future, everybody, including myself, has the help they need getting through a door or whatever, then that's, to me, is merit. So I'll cook this and I'll get some definitions. I think I did a search once of all the readings from the various classes, and I couldn't nail down a definition of merit versus wisdom, but I'll also do that. Wendy, I don't know if you have this, but I've compiled all of the readings for ACI 1 through 18 in one file, all the answer keys in one file, and all the student notes in another file. And it makes it very easy to research this. Do you have a copy of that?
No, I don't. If that's available, I would love it.
I tell you, would you send me your email? My email address, do you have it? Yeah, okay, my email address, don't give this to the ad agencies, is D Carl with a K, Stumpf, STUMPF, at gmail.com. But if I start getting ads from very weird places, I'll know where it came from. Okay. Well, thank you for that. I'm
Sorry,
intrigued.
would you repeat your email address again?
Yeah, D is in David, Carl, Karl, at Gmail, excuse me, D Carl Stumpf, STUMPF, at gmail.com.
STUPF?
No, STUM is in Mike, P is in Paul, F is in Frank.
Stumpf. Okay.
Stumpf,
Karl
yeah.
Stumpf. Okay. Karl Stumpf at gmail.com.
Gmail.com.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. I usually give out my Sumati address, but I double that. I have that forward to my D. Carl Stumpf, so what the heck. Okay. So I have a question mark here as my notes. Merit. So we discussed that. Now there's another way of classifying karma into three kinds. And what would another way of classifying karma be? Anybody have an idea? Time of ripening. It could happen now. It could happen in the next life. It could happen in some future life. Happening in this life is the basis of Tantra. The whole point of a tantric practice is to get karma to ripen quickly. You have to remember that karma good and karma bad, all of it's gonna ripen more quickly with a good tantra practice. Generally, the more powerful the deed, the sooner it will ripen. And the power could be discussed in two ways. A really powerful good deed, and that would just be a good deed in itself, or a deed toward a powerful karmic object. So what do we mean by powerful karmic objects? Well, your parents, because they brought you into this world and they nurtured you. Whether you like them or not, they're still a very powerful karmic object. Geshe Michael would be a very powerful karmic object for us. His holiness is a powerful karmic object. You all are powerful karmic objects to me because I don't know which ones of you are secret bodhisattvas who are just letting me teach you Buddhism. So I treat everybody as a powerful karmic object, because if you don't, you may miss an opportunity, and I don't want to do that. So what other your children, if you have children, should be seen as powerful karmic objects. Your spouse, powerful karmic object. It's a little difficult for my wife and I because we started studying Buddhism together, and as a married couple, no children, we're both very much into the Dharma. There are many couples where the husband or the wife is a Dharma student and the others don't care about it. And that, I think, would be very difficult. So that's another thing to rejoice about. Well, I'm always rejoicing about my lovely wife. Okay. Normally, your good deeds, if done with ignorance and not dedicated, will just lead to a short-term result, which wears out like our body does in this lifetime. So if you don't want a good karma to wear out, you need to dedicate it. And to dedicate it, this is in day 6 of the liberation of the palm of your hand. If you have a copy of the liberation in the palm of your hand from the Mahayana and Sutrayana Press, the press that publishes Ken Rinpoche's books. I have scanned that, and I can give, upon proof of you owning a copy, I can send you the scan. I talked to the publisher, and as long as you own a copy of the book, they have no trouble with you having a digital copy, which makes it very easy to use as a research tool when you're teaching. But you have to physically showing me the books via Zoom, and if you promise me you own them, I won't need to see a receipt, because promising me something like that and lying about it would be extremely bad karma. So I just offer that to you as a tool for your study. So the liberation of the palm of your hand, the Sutra of Questions posed by Sagaramati says, just as a drop of water fallen into the great ocean does not disappear as long as the ocean does not dry up, so also virtue dedicated to enlightenment is not exhausted until Buddhahood is achieved. So we've talked a little bit about, I think, maybe not, we'll talk about it now. There's something called your root of virtue. It's your collection of all your good deeds. And if you get mad at a bodhisattva, you will destroy your root of virtue. So since we don't know who's a bodhisattva, we can't get mad at anybody. Now, what happens is if you dedicate a virtuous deed, this somehow, and I don't understand how, protects it from being destroyed by your root of virtue. So just as a drop of water falling into the great ocean does not disappear as long as the ocean does not dry up, so also virtue dedicated to enlightenment is not exhausted until Buddhahood is achieved. So how do you dedicate? There's a dedication that I often do. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. That's a powerful dedication. Another one is to simply say, you do a good deed, you simply say, I dedicate this good deed to the enlightenment of all sentient beings, as including me. That's a very short dedication, but that's what I'm trying to have everybody do when we do rejoicing practice. You rejoice in a good deed and then indicate how that's going to help you along the path. I like the idea of virtue done with wisdom equals merit. I really like that. Anyway, okay. Here the ocean is referring to mixing our virtue you've seen as drops of water into the ocean of the virtue of the Buddhas. The verse quoted here cannot be found in the version of that sutra that's available today, but Pabonka Rinpoche feels it likely appears in another sutra of the same name from years gone past. So back to the time of ripening. If karma ripened more quickly, which most of us want the good karma to ripen quickly, you would, at the same time you crush a bug, you'd feel your chest crushed at the same time. So delay is nice in most ways, but it tends to mitigate your belief in karma to some extent. So I have a friend, I haven't talked to Summer in a long time, but she took up, Geshe Michael gave her the advice if she wanted a spiritual partner. She's having trouble finding a spiritual partner. And he said, go to an old folks home and help the old folks have a better life in their waning years. And that will get you the karma to have a spiritual partner. Well, she's been doing that for 20 years and still doesn't have a spiritual partner. So she thinks it's easy for her to think, well, this doesn't work because I'm supposed to get a spiritual partner from this. And that's the time lag that's bothering her. Since I don't know who's a powerful karmic object, I believe as I do good deeds and dedicate them, I believe that karma could ripen at any time. Like I've said before, I could have the karma to have, because I'm helping others with their illnesses, I could have the karma ripen to wake up one morning and not have Parkinson's anymore. It's completely possible if I believe in karma and emptiness. Completely possible. The fact that it hasn't happened yet doesn't deter me from thinking it's completely possible. And it's very important to keep that frame of mind. On that cheerful note, let's see. Karma wearing out. Well, there's the idea of good, dirty, good karma. We'll talk about that in another class. That's not brought up here. So, in the transcript of this class, a student asked about taking all this on faith. So let's quickly review what Lord Buddha said about his teachings. Now, this is what I like, one of the many things I like about Buddhist philosophy. We're not just supposed to believe it because Lord Buddha said it. He said, and I quote, "Just don't believe what I teach. Treat it like gold. Melt it, cut it, and rub it." We as Buddhists have to examine and test all the teachings to see if they're worthy of being followed. So when you have a piece of gold, there are three ways you can test its quality. You can melt it, you can cut it, and you can rub it. So melted means you take the sample and you melt it with an accurate thermometer, and the melting temperature it has will tell you the quality of the gold. You can cut it, and that'll tell you whether it's a gold, what do they call it, gold plated, or you can rub it. If you can't cut it or melt it, you can rub it. And so how does this actually work? Well, back in the day, before they had fancy analytical equipment, you could take a piece of gold you know to be pure gold or some alloy of gold, and you could heat it up like a blacksmith and see if it melts at the same point that is another sample melts. That'd be a tough one. Cut it, that's easy. You scrape away part of the piece of gold to see if it's gold plated. And to rub it allows you to analyze the quality of some gold. If you rub it on a certain type of stone, it's like shale, it'll leave a specific color for the alloy it is. So you can buy a kit. I almost bought a kit, but then decided that's one more thing I didn't need. You can buy a kit, can't remember what they call it, and it has this piece of shale in it, and you take, which is called a touchstone, and you take your piece of gold and you strike it across that. It's like sandpaper, and it leaves a trace. Then they have samples of 10 karat, 15 karat, et cetera, alloys of gold, and you rub that on the same stone, and you'll see a color. And you can then match the color of your sample against those, and that will tell you by rubbing it the quality of the gold. So what we're saying basically is, do the words of Scripture contradict what you believe to be an authoritative source? So if you hear me say something you don't believe to be true, what do? Do you panic and think I'm lying to you? Do you stop and think, no, he's saying something for me to think of in a different way? That's the literal or figurative. The example for literal or figurative is there's a certain sutra that says, kill your mother and father. Well, obviously, that's not telling me to kill my mother and father. But if you're not a Buddhist and you read that, you could be a Baptist. Well, I shouldn't mention a religion. You could be of another religion and see that and say, oh, Buddhists go around killing their parents. Well, if you're smart as a Buddhist, you'd stop and think, is that a literal or figurative statement? If it's figurative, what does he mean? If it's literal, what does he mean? Well, it can't be literal because Lord Buddha would never tell me to kill my parents. But it could be figurative in that he's telling me to kill the parents of my mental afflictions, which is ignorance. So if I can catch myself not being ignorant of a specific event, then I've killed I'm killing my mental afflictions. That's what he's asking us to do by killing your mother and father. Your mental afflictions are what give birth to bad karmic deeds. So the key is not to judge as good or bad, since what appears to you as bad may be a Buddha or a Bodhisattva trying to teach you a lesson. So if you see something you don't understand, first of all, if it's something I've said, ask me. I can't answer you if you don't ask me. I won't take it personally unless you tell me I'm a jerk or something, but ask me to clarify. And then be prepared for the fact that I may just look at you and smile and say what my wife usually says to me when I ask her a question. She says, what do you think? I'm asking you. I don't need a question back at me. So this brings up the subject of my pet sayings. The past is your present, the present is your future. I find that to be very helpful and every day for me. I don't know what I did in the past. I rejoice and I did so many good things to have met the Dharma and Geshe Michael and all of you. But I don't know what's going to ripen next. But I do know the present is what's going to make my future. So if I want my future to be what I really want it to be, a Buddhist paradise, I need to do things now that will be reflected in the future, which will become the present down the road. And the other one is, it's not my karma, but it's my karma so. How many times have you heard someone say, it's not my karma, but it is? Well, they say it's my karma, but in this case, it doesn't matter. I'll do this anyway. And I like to say it's my karma, so if I do this, I have to be willing to accept the consequence. And the last one is the how and the why. I use the how and why with my Parkinson's as an example. The how I got Parkinson's, as I've probably said before, but I think it bears repeating, is most likely genetic or chemicals I used as a scientist. The why I got Parkinson's is because of how I treated others in the past. If the how was why I got Parkinson's, anybody who used those same chemicals or pesticides would get Parkinson's. Everybody would. But the fact that everybody doesn't leads me to understand that it has to do with how I treated others in the past. So knowing that, the how and the why, when something happens during the day, stop and think of the how and the why and what you can do about it. in the present to make your future what you want it to be. It's a challenge. And Geshe Michael more than once has said, we're cursed now that we know about karma and emptiness. We know it's only our fault for everything that's happened in our life, in this life. And only we can do something about it. Okay. Oh, and the last one is, I never, ever want to hear any of you say, but it's empty, so I can do whatever I want. I don't think any of you would say that, but it's amazing what you hear sometimes in conversations. Now, here's a note. Oh, most kinds of karma will divert to the same result in a different form if conditions aren't ready for that karma to ripen. So this is, I was going to write a compendium on the different karmic actions and results. There are many of these, but I was going to write one along the way I like to study the Dharma. And I realized that it's not quite that simple. For instance, if you want to have money financially secure, one would obviously think, well, help others, give away money and help others. But generosity comes in different forms. You can be generous with your time. So that means other people would make time for you. That's a direct correlation. Or because you're generous with your time, other people are generous to you with other things. That's my belief. I don't know if this is a true statement, but I believe by being generous with my time, I will have generosity in many forms bestowed upon me. So if I need something, obviously, if I need something done, and if it's time sensitive, then I make sure I'm helping people immediately. For instance, when I'm researching one of my books or articles, I find something and I really want it back, want the information as soon as possible, then I need to make sure that if one of you asks me for a piece of information, I don't say I'll get to it. If you email me and ask me a question, unless you email me every day for the next 20 years, I will do my best to answer it as absolutely as soon as possible. Because I want the same result to come to me when I'm looking for something. Now, there's a karmic ripening issue right there. I've had some wonderful examples of this happening absolutely right away, within minutes. And so one could argue that's coming from a past life, and maybe it is. I like to think it's coming from my adherence to the belief that if I do something now to help you, I can expect something to happen now or in the future to help me. But I don't think of it as, oh, it's going to happen next lifetime. If you think that way, it's I think it's self-defeating. I think it's much more important to think whatever good deed I do today could ripen later today or tomorrow or the next life, etc. But don't leave out that it could happen today. The whole DCI training that Geshe Michael is doing with business people is based on do a good deed now and it can ripen in this lifetime. And there's no reason that's not true. Now, the same could be said about bad things, but I don't like to dwell on that. Okay. We talked about the three kinds. Oh, neutral karma. And that's an interesting question. What do you think a neutral karma would be? It doesn't give a good or a bad result, but think about what a neutral karma would be. I think of the environment. So I look outside and it's really hot. And I think, well, it's hot. It's Arizona. It's hot. I don't think good or bad. But then my mind goes, but it's 105 degrees outside. You don't want to be walking around 105 degrees. So I've gone from a neutral karma to a karma I have an opinion about. So is there really truly anything such thing as a neutral karma? I'm not arguing that the Abhidharma Kosha is wrong. I'm trying to get in my mind an example of a neutral karma. And maybe neutral karmas are just passingly neutral. You look outside and you see a tree. So when you just see the tree, it's a neutral karma. But when you go, oh, it's a pine tree, well, now you have an opinion. So is that neutral anymore? Is there really such thing as a neutral karma? Again, I'm not saying Abhidharma Kosha is wrong. I'm trying to figure out, and how important is there that there's a neutral karma? The Abhidharma Kosha is part of the detailist school. They're very interested in minute details. So maybe neutral karma's not that big a deal. Don't know. So there are four kinds of good karmic deeds that are detailed in the Abhidharma Kosha. The first one, interestingly, is nirvana. Geshe Michael says it's only nominally karma since it's not an action. The ultimate good deed is to reach nirvana. That's one type of good karmic deed. Another one is a good deed by its very nature. There are 5 of these. Understanding emptiness and not desiring. That's a non-desire. Non-desire in the Abhidharma is the root of virtue, is a kind of mental function that by its very nature is virtuous. It's understanding and not wanting that thing for the wrong reasons. So that's an interesting question. Is it wrong for us to have desire? No. You can like good food, but it's wrong when you do something incorrect to get it. So non-hatred, likewise, you're not hating people, and non-ignorance, that's wisdom. What are these? These are the 3 poisons. Do you remember the wheel of life? There are the 3 animals in the center, the 3 poisons, the pig, the snake, and the dove. Pig, the snake, and the dove are rooster. Rooster is liking things ignorantly. The snake is disliking things ignorantly, and the pig is ignorance itself. The 2 tails of other 2 are coming out of the pig's mouth to signify that because we don't understand the marriage between ethics and emptiness, we behave immorally in order to get what we like and avoid what we don't like. Then we suffer because we've committed these misdeeds. Geshe Michael has said more than once, and the Abhidharma Kosha says this as well, one of the greatest acts of virtue you can do is to avoid a bad deed, even if just for a moment when you're on the verge of doing it. That doesn't mean say, well, I want to go eat 5 bars of chocolate, but I'm resisting, but I'm going to do it anyway. The point is you try hard to not do it. And when you don't do it, you pat yourself on the back. When you do it, you realize you tried, but you have to try harder. Now, I've never eaten 5 bars of chocolate. That's just an exaggeration. What have I eaten? Back when I was in grad school in Madison, Wisconsin, by myself, I wasn't vegetarian yet. Friday nights, there was a show called The Rockford Files on TV. I happened to really like James Garner, who was the star of the show. So I would watch that. I would have two filet of fish sandwiches from McDonald's, a large milkshake, and this is the part that most people can't understand, and a 1 pound bag of chocolate covered peanut M&Ms. And I would eat the entire bag while I was watching TV. The entire bag of, and this is the funny part. I would get about 2/3 of the way down and say, "Oh, you gotta save this for tomorrow." And then I go, "Nah, just finish it." So that was excessive. I don't know where these stories come from, but so I don't eat 5 bars of chocolate, but I can eat a bag of M&Ms. Anyway, so we have the nirvana, a good deed by its very nature, the 3 roots of virtue, and then we have 2 thoughts of virtue. Avoid bad deeds for reasons related to yourself. That's what we call shame. Avoid bad deeds for reasons related to yourself. And the second one is avoid bad deeds because someone else might find out. That's consideration. Or I also use the term consciousness. The third kind of good karmic seed is when you have a virtuous thought, all the mental functions are virtuous by association. The neutral ones are also virtuous. Not quite sure what that is supposed to be telling us. When you have a virtuous thought, all the mental functions are virtuous by association. Okay, I'll take that on face value. The last one is verbal and physical actions resulting from motivation. And I've talked before about movement of the mind and what it has us do in thought or action. But I consider movement of the mind doesn't have to have an action associated with it, just the movement of the mind. So when I get frustrated, and I get frustrated more and more as I get less and less able to use my left hand, I get frustrated and I still get angry. Now, as I'm getting angry, I say to myself, here I'm telling my class I have this problem, I'm working on it. Why don't I do better with it? Well, I've got a lot of anger seeds apparently I need to work out. So it's difficult. Big deal. Well, every time I get mad at myself, I'm planting seeds to have anger in my future, and I don't want that. So but I look at it this way. As angry as mad as I get, or as frustrated as I get with my Parkinson's, it could be a lot worse. So I'm just hoping it doesn't get a lot worse. Okay, what's next here? Oh, this is a good story to tell. So there's a famous story in Tibet. You're walking up a mountain and the rainstorm comes during the monsoon and you're getting soaked, and they have all these Buddhist images on these stones and rocks. So there's this story about a guy a poor guy, and all he's got are one of those towels that Indian people wear around their waist, and they go around with nothing but that on. He's got sandals as well. So he's walking by this Buddhist image and it starts to rain. And he thinks that someone should protect the statue from the rain. So he can't very well take off his towel. So he takes off his shoe and puts it on the top of the statue and walks off, feeling that he's protected the statue. A moment later, someone comes along and can't believe a dirty shoe is on top of the statue, so he takes it off. Both are virtuous deeds. They both collect a huge virtue with the correct motivation. So I think one has to be, personally, I think one has to be very careful about this concept of right motivation. It's easy to convince yourself that you're doing something with the right motivation, but it's a rationalization for something you shouldn't do. So my wife and I look at it this way. There's a short-term and a long-term consequence. The short-term is where you can rationalize the right motivation, but if you have the Dharma maturity to see the long-term consequence also, we believe you'll catch yourself from doing things that are just a case of justification. So here's an example from my 3-year retreat. I was asked during 3-year retreat to build a throne structure for Lama Christie, who was my teacher in the 3-year retreat. I had the tools. I built this throne, which is just a platform. It wasn't a fancy throne, ornate or anything. But we painted it and detailed it with dorjes and things like that. And it was up the hill and where one of our temple areas was during 3-year retreat. And Katya, did you get up to the Lama house when you were at Diamond Mountain?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Well, Mike, did you? Well, Mike's gone. Apparently not. Well, anyway, so there's a temple up there, and this throne was in the temple. And one day I went up to the temple, and the throne was all beat up. It was damaged. Someone had done something to damage it. And my first thought was, what would you possibly do to damage a throne? Well, I found out later that a student had been asked to bring the throne down to another part of the retreat, and she didn't have anybody to help her, so she rolled it down the hill and damaged it. Now, her motivation was she'd been asked to get it to the temple, the other location, and no matter what, she was going to do it. But she damaged it. So it was it the right motivation? The short-term consequence, sure, I got it down there. The long-term consequence, I caused damage to it that someone's going to have to repair. So the point of the story is, think out, when you find yourself saying, well, it's my motivation, stop and think if that's a rationalization or if that's true. And I think you'll find yourself, in my case, I invariably find myself realizing it's a rationalization. Before I became a Buddhist, not too many people know this, but I was the president of the universe's rationalization club. I was very good at rationalizing things. Like, well, I bought that 1-pound bag of M&Ms. There's only 1/3 of it left. So I'll just finish it because 1/3 of it left tomorrow. I'm going to want more. No, I didn't go out and buy another bag, thank God. But could I still do that? I don't think I should try. I think that's a bad idea, so I won't. I've never done that with ice cream. We have these 2 bowls that we got when we moved into this house. And they're the perfect size for a huge helping of ice cream and a banana split. And I've been in this house now for almost 3 years, and I haven't done that yet. So I can show restraint. Okay, throne story. So we talked about the 10 non-virtues, so I like to think of them as the 10 virtuous actions. So let's go through. The 10 non-virtues are body, speech, and mind. There are 3 of the body: killing, stealing, sexual misconduct. Speech, there are 4: lying, divisive speech, harsh words, meaningless talk. And mind, 4, coveting, ill will, wrong view. 3. So killing, suicide is prevalent. Abortion would be another one. Stealing, taking that which is not given. Sexual misconduct, adultery is the main one here. The non-virtues of speech, lying, giving the wrong impression, or lying by omission. Divisive speech, alienating people from each other. Gossip is often involved. Harsh words. I put swearing in here. I think swearing, there are days when certain words are very effective in a conversation, but I try very hard to use words to show I have a decent vocabulary. Meaningless talk, all-encompassing seemingly at first, but on thought. What is meaningless talk? Conversation, talking about football scores. Is that meaningless talk? I don't know. I think when you find yourself repeating the same thing over and over, or talking about, well, who won the ball game? Oh, but that could be important to somebody. Of course, the question then is should it be important to them? With renunciation, I think you'll find that as your renunciation improves, your ability to not engage in meaningless talk will improve. Then the mind, coveting, that's like grasping. Ill will is jealousy, wrong view. Geshe Michael says, worst of all, wrong view. If we really believed in karma and emptiness, we wouldn't get near the other 9 non-virtues. So let's talk about them in terms of as a virtue. Protecting life, respecting other people's property, respecting others' relationships. The 3 of body. Involving speech, always speak the truth or don't speak at all. Speaking constructively, speaking kindly, speaking mindfully. How can I be generous? How can I rejoice in another's good fortune and think of karma and its consequences? The critical point here is to recall that there are subtle aspects like gossip. You say, well, I heard this. Be careful that you're not trying to mold someone's opinion of another. Information is one thing, but it's an easy line to cross into hurtful gossip. So I usually stop and I think, if I'm going to share someone with somebody, I want to be sure if that person came to me and accused me of saying something, I'd be able to look at them and say, well, that's what you said, instead of inferring something. Where's an example of that? No, this is a good example. There was a volunteer that had kids that lived at DM for a while. And one day I found them throwing garbage out of a garbage can, individual pieces of garbage, into a garbage trailer, which meant somebody was going to have to take the individual pieces out of the trailer and put them in the dump. So I said to them, I can't believe your mom told you to do that. And they wrote back, they went back to their mom and said, David said, nah, 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 when I didn't. And so she got mad at me. So I told her what I said, but I realized that I had spoken inappropriately because I hadn't really put it in context. If I was going to say something like that, I needed to be sure they understood exactly what I meant. So if you're going to criticize someone or you're going to say they said something, be willing to say it in front of them. If you can't say that to their face, then you probably shouldn't say it. I used to like to think about what I call neutron emails. you'd send an email that would just blow someone away. And then I stopped and I thought, what's the good of doing that? If you can't say it to their face, then don't say it. If I'm going to be critical of someone, I should be able to say it to them right to their face. And if I can't, I shouldn't say it. And I think that's a lesson that unfortunately the internet and social media has allowed a lot of people to say things anonymously. And I think that's very hurtful for everyone, which is one reason I don't like social media. But one of these days I almost joined Facebook and I thought, nah. And my wife, I was on, what's the other one? It's not Facebook, it's not Telegram, it's Spotify, is that right? Spotify social media, or is that like videos, like TikTok? Anyway, I was on it so people could get a hold of me when we were in Malaysia, but I got rid of it off my phone as soon as I could. Okay, so what else? I think I've covered what's on the homework. Any questions about this particular aspect of karma and emptiness? Go ahead, Svetlana.
Can I ask such a question? When we have some bad thoughts or anger or some negative thoughts are arising, can we use, like, for example, 4 powers, because it's our bad seeds are ripening, so we can use 4 powers to shift our attention to some other stuff and plant something good. So
Absolutely. Use the 4 powers liberally. Use the 4 powers like you use salt and pepper. Just anytime you have an inkling of a bad thought, and anytime you do a bad deed, even a small one, because you know they'll grow, do the 4 powers. 4 powers of purification. Who can give me the 4 powers in the correct order? Oh, come on, you know it. Katya, you know it.
Refuge.
Yes.
Like regret, or
Yep, that's 2.
yes, like the antidote.
No, that's 4.
That's
The
4.
third one is
Don't
restraint.
compromise to don't do it again.
Restraint, exactly.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about, for those that don't, anybody here not know what 4 powers of purification is? Okay. Well, just briefly, you take refuge in the fact that you are Buddhist, aspiring Buddhist, and you know that the consequences of karma and emptiness. You regret that you did the deed sincerely. You give yourself a restraint that is reasonable. So for me to say I'll never get mad at myself again for not being able to open a Ziploc bag is moronic, because I'm going to, but I can say, okay, for the rest of the day, you're not going to get mad, and try very hard not to. And then the remedy is to think of the consequences from a karmic standpoint, that I've just set the seed, even though I've damaged it with the 4 powers. I've set a seed in motion that I wish I hadn't. Now, this brings up a very reasonable question, and that is, we say karma must always ripen. Well, there are one of the 2 instances that a karmic deed wouldn't ripen. There are 2 instances that could be true. The first one is getting angry at a bodhisattva. That destroys your root of virtue. So all of those good deeds are gone. So even though I did the good deed of helping Katya do something because I got mad at Svetlana, now all those good deeds with Katya are wiped out, so they'll never ripen. This is something to think about. I think I may be overstating it, but it's something to think about. Now, the other one is if you do the 4 powers of purification properly, you can severely damage, if not eliminate. And this is a part I didn't understand until I read it recently. You can eliminate a bad karmic seed by doing the 4 powers of purification. But that takes an extraordinary clarity in your 4 powers. So when someone says a karmic deed once done must ripen, not so much. So I just throw that out there. That's a caveat. When I teach the laws of karma, I make sure to, and the last one, to bring up the 4 powers. Okay. So what was the homework? The homework was to continue to research and come up with the difference, if there is a difference between merit and virtue. Virtue? Virtuous deed and merit. Yeah. So come up. I'm going to ask each one. I'm going to write this down. I am going to remember. Where can I put this that I'll remember it? I could tape it to my forehead, but then I'd look pretty silly walking around. Oh, I'll stick it here on my mats for Thursday. Okay, well, let's dedicate. O Gurus, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, O Tara, Mother of us all, please listen to what I now say from the depths of my heart. Watch over Tenzin Gyatso, protector of the land of snow. He who is of one taste with Avalokiteshvara, guide him and protect him, that he may live long, to bring liberation to his people and the Dharma to all sentient beings. May all his goals and wishes be achieved. Through this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, so that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the source of benefit and goodness, the Dharma, spread and expand. May the beings upholding the Dharma have excellent health. May the source of happiness and well-being for all embodied beings, the Dharma taught by the Buddhas, always increase. Thank you all for being in my life. Thank you for coming to the teachings. And we will see you on Thursday. Is that? I have something going on Thursday. What's going on? Just, I have a busy couple of weeks coming up. There it is. Calendar. Thursday. No, that's all after class. Not a problem. Okay. We'll see you all. Have a nice couple of 3 days, and we'll see you all on Thursday. So, Daria, are you feeling better?
Yeah, thank you.
Good,
That-
good. Okay. Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you for translating, Olga.
Thank
glad-
you for this opportunity.
You're welcome. Thank you, Camilla, for your contributions. Thank you, Mike, as always, for doing the mandala. Thank you, Katya, for smiling so much. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Oh, Svetlana, can you hang? Whoops.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah. Hang on for a minute.